Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into something complex, the history of Gush Katif.
Right, that block of Israeli settlements in Gaza.
Exactly. And the Israeli disengagement. But also, crucially, how we look back at all that now, especially, after October 7th. It's shifted things.
Definitely shifted perspectives.
Yeah, and what struck me looking at the sources is they're not just like dry history. They're full of really personal stories.
Absolutely. History mixed with these deep personal narratives.
And it helps you kind of track how ideas about land, security, community, how they've all evolved. It's about the people, really.
For sure. And that's our mission today, right? To unpack all of that, we need to go back, see how the settlement started, why the disengagement happened.
The painful parts.
The painful parts, the lessons learned, or maybe not learned, and understand why different groups saw things so differently. Those views, they still matter now.
Yeah, they really do. We need to look at the claims, the human side of it all.
The human cost, definitely.
Okay, so let's rewind. Back after the Six-Day War. That's when the idea for Gush Katif really starts forming.
Mm-hmm.
People like Golda Meir, Yitzhak Rabin.
Mm-hmm.
They were pushing for it. Rabin actually went to the ceremony for the first settlement, Netzer Hazani.
Right, back in 77.
Yeah, February 77. And he apparently said something like, this place will be an inseparable part of Israel. Big statement.
A very big statement considering.
And what's really fascinating from those early days is this feeling of, normalcy. But more than that, a real belief in security.
Like it was just safe.
Totally. There's this amazing story about a kid, maybe 10 or 11, from Nedavat.
Okay.
Just goes into Gaza alone. Salah al-Din Street. No fear. Buys vegetables, fish, even gets a bar mitzvah suit tailored there.
Wow. Alone.
Now, compare that to today. People say you need 5 armies just to go in. It's just a different world.
It really highlights a completely different era, doesn't it? And for the settlers themselves, their drive was, it was profound.
How so?
They genuinely felt they were settling the land of Israel. It was their birthright, Specifically, they'd say the land of the tribe of Judah.
So deeply religious and historical roots.
Absolutely. And this conviction that by being there, by holding that ground, they were literally saving the entire country. It wasn't just about houses. It was existential for them.
That's a heavy idea, saving the country.
Yeah.
How did that play out day to day? What was the vibe, the character of the...
Well, the sources talk about this unique mix: Torah, faith, love of the land, and agriculture, all woven together.
Okay.
And it created this incredibly strong bond. People felt like family. It wasn't just neighbors. It was a real shared community purpose.
And that mix actually led to success, right? Particularly farming.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Gush Katif became this hub for organic farm. Tomatoes especially.
I read that detail about growing tomatoes super high.
3 meters high in sand dunes. Locals apparently said, you can't even grow grass, but they did it.
Amazing.
Became the biggest organic exporters and employed over 150 local Palestinian workers, too, from places like Dur al-Ara, Ambrusi, names we hear all the time.
So you have this picture, thriving, connected. But beneath that, problems were brewing, tensions were building towards the disengagement. What were the first signs?
Well, even years before, you had these really strong opposing views clashing. It kind of foreshadows the arguments we still hear.
Like what?
On one side, people on the right, including settlers, were warning very clearly, if Israel pulls out of Gaza, rockets will start flying into Israel proper.
Okay, a direct security warning.
Very direct. But others on the other side were arguing just as strongly that the disengagement was actually good for Israel's security.
Good.
The argument was that holding Gaza was a drain, a security burden. They dismissed the rocket warnings as just ridiculous claims, scare tactics. They told the right to stop the fear-mongering.
Wow. So completely opposite predictions about security. Did they address that rocket argument directly back then? How did they refute it?
The focus for those supporting disengagement was often more on the demographics, the cost of occupation, the international pressure. The rocket argument was sometimes downplayed as unlikely or manageable.
And you could actually see these tensions, right? Protests near Gush Katif?
Yeah, residents from nearby kibbutzim in the Gaza envelope. They'd stand at the checkpoints like Kisufim or the turnoff to Gush Katif.
What were they saying?
Holding signs, end the occupation, settlers return home, things like that. Direct confrontation.
How did the Gush Katif residents react to that, seeing their neighbors protesting against them?
Oh, it caused deep pain, real bewilderment. They truly saw themselves as the shield, the front line, protecting everyone, including those kibbutzim.
They felt they were protecting the protesters themselves.
Exactly. They talk about trying to explain it. We're here for you, but feeling like nobody was listening, just completely unheard.
That must have been incredibly frustrating.
There was this sense, a really painful one, that their neighbors would eventually understand, but maybe only after something terrible happened. Tragic sort of...
It sounds like they felt, perpetually blamed. This idea of being always guilty.
Yes. That phrase comes up, living there, fighting, losing people, and still being painted as the source of the problem by so many in their own heavy burden.
This feeling of being trampled, vilified.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes. And there's a really striking historical comparison that kind of digs into why these perceptions were so different.
Right. It's fascinating. A source compares two places founded on the exact same night, January 11th, 1946.
Okay.
Kfar Darum, which became part of Gush Katif, and Be'eri, the kibbutz in the Gaza envelope. Founded together, same pioneering spirit initially.
Viewed very differently later on.
Totally differently. Kfar Darum came to be seen by some as problem makers, occupiers, while Be'eri was lauded as the salt of the earth, a symbol of the best of Israel.
Why the split in perception?
The suggestion is it stemmed from their approach to the land. The kibbutz view was seen as more practical about working the land. Gush Katif's connection was perceived as different, this deep holiness, a faith-based bond.
Which some people found too much.
Almost extreme, yeah. That level of devotion to the land itself was maybe hard for others to grasp, seen as less pragmatic.
And going back to those security predictions, the claim now, from some, is that after the IDF left Gush Katif, Gaza essentially turned into a terror empire.
That's definitely one interpretation, a strong one held by many who oppose the withdrawal. But it's important to hear the other side, too.
What was that?
Some of the kibbutz residents, before the disengagement, saw the constant attacks on Gush Katif, the casualties.
And they felt
a different kind of pain, maybe. They'd ask the settlers, why do you stay? You don't have to live like this. It wasn't necessarily anti-settler, but a desire to end the suffering, even if it meant giving up the...
So a clash of values almost. Human life versus holding territory.
Exactly. The settlers' faith-based connection meant leaving was unthinkable, while for some neighbors, the human cost seemed too high to justify staying.
Okay, let's fast forward now to the immediate present, or near present, October 7th, because that event has just fundamentally changed this whole conversation.
Absolutely. It casts a long shadow back on the disengagement.
Some analysts, people like Ben Caspit, have suggested the attack was possible, partly because troops and attention shifted away from Gaza.
Towards Judea and Samaria, yeah. That argument is out there.
And there was that claim, I think, in Haaretz about weapons being moved from the Gaza envelope to settlers in the West Bank, making the border communities more vulnerable.
Heavy claims. And the cost has been staggering, especially for the Religious Zionist community.
The community many Gush Katif residents belong to.
Right. They're about 10% of Israel's population, but suffered something like 50% of the casualties in the subsequent Gaza operation. A huge disparity.
Which leads to that agonizing question.
Yeah. Could we have prevented this? Could lives have been saved? It hangs over everything.
The personal stories from October 7th are devastating. The sources include an account from Avita Bachar from Be'eri.
It's heartbreaking. Lost his wife and son.
Describes shielding them with his body, living with that loss every single day. It's hard to even talk about.
Unimaginable. And then in the hospital, he has this encounter.
Right, with Eliyahu Dakbash, a rabbi from Netivot, also badly injured.
Horrifically injured, legs almost gone. Yet, Bachar describes him expressing gratitude to God.
Gratitude in that state.
Gratitude. Bachar said he was screaming in pain, but also weeping with gratitude. And it taught Bachar something profound.
What was that?
That gratitude, even in the absolute worst moments, lets you see the half-full glass. It's what allows you to somehow move forward, find meaning.
Wow. Finding gratitude amidst such horror. That's powerful. And this shared trauma, it makes you think back to those warnings before the disengagement.
It really does. That specific warning from Gush Katif residents to the kibbutzim.
If we aren't here, you will suffer the sand.
Exactly. And they remember thinking, why don't they get it? We protect them. They felt they were the buffer.
And how is that warning seen now after October 7th?
Well, there's been a major shift for some, acknowledging that buffer role, Avita Bachar himself.
The man from Be'eri who lost his family.
Yes. He says something incredibly profound. Standing in the ruins of Be'eri, he says he used to think life was stronger than land.
Okay.
But now he believes land is more important than life. If you don't have it, you can't build life on it.
That's a complete reversal.
Yeah.
A radical rethinking based on, well, the worst possible experience.
It's a stark realization that territory isn't abstract. It's the physical foundation you need for life, for security.
And ironically, tragically, this shared horror seems to have created a connection that wasn't there before.
Definitely. Between former Gush Katif residents and the Gaza envelope communities, there's a sense now, as one source said, that they very much understand what they did there.
A recognition maybe of that protective role and the price of losing it.
Yes, and this whole reevaluation, this painful rediscovery of the land's importance, leads some to say that Zionism isn't over. It's only just beginning.
Meaning what?
Meaning that deep connection to the land, that faith-based steadfastness, they call it a Jewish samud, is more vital than ever. It's seen as fundamental for survival, for the future.
This has been, well, incredibly deep. The stories, the shifts in perspective, the tragedy woven through the history of Gush Katif, the disengagement, and how it all echoes now after October 7th.
It really lays bare the cost, doesn't it? The cost of having such different ideas about what land means, what security requires, and how home itself can be so different for different people.
Yet the outcome, the suffering, has become so tragically shared.
That's the painful irony. Shared loss bringing a kind of understanding that maybe wasn't there before.
So it leaves you thinking, what happens when one group's serious warnings are just brushed off as scare tactics, and then the worst happens? How does a society even begin to process that?
And how do communities heal? How do you find common ground when core beliefs about land, life, faith, when they collide with such devastating force, leaving so much pain behind? That's the question we're left with.